At lunch, Mom leaned over and said, "I gave your sister $1.7 million to start her dream salon. It was a better investment." Then she handed me a bill for rent. Dad laughed and added, "Some people just don't have the spark." I smiled politely. They had no idea what I would do next. My name's Natalie Pierce. I'm 27. And that lunch, it was the last time I ever let them speak to me like that. The white linen tablecloth did nothing to soften the slap of my mother's words. "I gave your sister $1.7 million, she said casually, plucking a cherry tomato off her overpriced salad. "It was a better investment. You're still finding yourself, right?" My hand froze midair over my iced tea. My lips twitched, not in surprise, but restraint. Across from me, my father leaned back, arms folded over his polo shirt like he was a guest of honor at some victory banquet. "Some people just don't have the spark," he chuckled. "No shame in that, but it's time you start contributing. You can't live in that guest house for free forever." Mom reached into her purse, pulled out a trifold paper, and slid it across the table. A rent invoice signed. I looked at both of them, my own parents, giddy with themselves. Giddy at the thought of squeezing rent money from the daughter who cooked their dinners, mowed their lawn, and hadn't asked for a thing in years. I took a slow breath and smiled. "You're right," I said. "It's time I started contributing, just not to this table anymore." Their smug expressions twitched just a little. "You're being dramatic," my mom scoffed. But I was already rising from my seat. The waiter approached, and I handed him my credit card before my dad could stop me. "Put the whole meal on this," I said. "It's the last one I'll be having with them." He looked at my parents. They said nothing. Not a protest, not a thank you. As I stepped out into the parking lot, the late afternoon sun hit my face like a spotlight. Warm, blinding, freeing. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I didn't even text my sister, who I knew was probably sipping champagne in her golden glass salon downtown, funded by the people who couldn't spare a dime for me. I drove. I drove until the palm trees disappeared and downtown LA blurred into low-rises and warehouses. My fingers tapped the steering wheel in rhythm, brain buzzing, not with anger. Anger was easy, but with a sharp electric kind of clarity. They thought I was nothing. An artist without direction. A dreamer who painted walls and watched YouTube tutorials, who once turned down a scholarship to Parsons to stay home and take care of my grandmother when Mom didn't want to. I remembered that year. I remembered bathing Grandma, reading to her, watching her forget who I was day after day, while my sister vacationed in Santorini and my parents managed their investments. They said I had no spark. They were wrong. That night, I opened my laptop in my tiny studio apartment. The walls were bare drywall, but they were mine. The coffee was cheap, but it was strong, and the fire in my chest had never burned brighter. I pulled up the branding files I'd been designing for months. I'd been silent for too long, waiting for approval I never needed, holding my breath. But that night, I let it go. I bought the domain, designed the storefront, pulled every commission piece I had from the art accounts I ran anonymously. I scheduled my launch for Friday. Pierce Prints, I whispered to the empty room. Custom art, limited run designs, prints, murals, digital packages. I'd built it in the shadows of that guest house after mowing their lawn, after reheating their dinners. Every click that night felt like a step out of their shadow. They thought they broke me at lunch. They had no idea. The next morning, my phone lit up with a message from Ava. "Mom said you stormed out. You okay? By the way, want to design the art wall at my salon. Could be a fun sister collab." I stared at it for a long second. Delete. Then came the call. Mom's voice was sharp, already rehearsed. "Natalie, your father, and I want you to know we didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but you really should consider moving out soon." "You're an adult," I let her talk. Let her fill the silence with half-hearted excuses. Then I said, "I'm launching something this Friday. You should watch closely. I want to remember what I looked like before I made it." Click. Friday came like a thunderclap. I had barely slept, barely eaten. My hands were shaking when I hit publish on the site. I designed every image, coded the interface from scratch. I'd even used my last $300 to promote on 3 local platforms targeting art collectors, design agencies, and home decorators. The orders started coming in, then more. By 5 p.m., my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My prints were shared by a mid-tier interior influencer. Then a popular Twitch streamer bought my Grit and Glow mural set for his streaming wall and tagged me. By midnight, I'd sold out 3 collections. I was booked for 5 private commissions, and my digital storefront had over 80,000 hits. That weekend, I made more than I had in the last 4 months combined. By Monday, I had to hire 2 freelance assistants. By Thursday, I was signing a rental lease for my first studio loft in downtown LA. I was no longer the other daughter. I was Natalie Pierce, CEO, creative director, and the spark they said I never had. But I wasn't done. Not yet, because I hadn't told them. I wanted them to see it with their own eyes, not through a screen, not through my sister's filtered life. I wanted them to walk into it and fall silent like I had so many times before. The silence was beautiful. I watched from behind the white curtain as they walked into the gallery, eyes blinking beneath the soft lighting. The space smelled like fresh paint and citrus, the walls lined with my latest collection. Bold, moody pieces titled The Forgotten Daughter. I hadn't invited them, but I made sure they'd be there. Ava came first, heels clicking on the polished floor, her hair in soft waves, camera already out. She thought it was just another gallery opening to add to her feed. Then Mom walked in, clutching her wine glass like a trophy. Then Dad, looking around, confused by the crowd of investors and well-dressed creatives murmuring praise over brush strokes and texture. They didn't recognize the name on the massive wall decal at first. Natalie Pierce, feature artist and founder of Pierce Print Studio. But when the owner of the gallery, a sharp woman named Clarice, shook my hand and announced me over the speaker, the air left the room. Their faces dropped. I stepped onto the small stage in a sleek navy jumpsuit. Nothing too flashy, but elegant, polished, confident. Gone was the girl who once flinched at their jabs over dinner. I looked right at them and smiled. "Is this your show?" Em asked later, cornering me near the display wall that held my best-selling collection. The one titled Table for One, featuring a woman dining alone while shadows laughed behind her. I didn't answer immediately. I let her look closer at the plaque beneath it, inspired by the last lunch I ever shared with people who said they loved me. A flush rose to her cheeks. She stepped back. "You could have told us," Dad grumbled. "You made us look stupid." "You told me I didn't have the spark," I said evenly. "Why would I share it with you before I knew it would ignite?" He blinked. Said nothing, but Ava did. "Okay, so you have an art thing now," she scoffed, eyes darting to the crowd that had gathered near my corner prints. "Don't act like it's some empire. This isn't Shark Tank." My eyes narrowed. That was always her problem. She only respected success when it came with applause. She only recognized value when someone else confirmed it first. "Actually," I said softly, "the mural I installed last week at the Fortune Tech HQ, it just got licensed for national campaign use. The deal closed yesterday." Her jaw slackened. I leaned in. "They paid 6 figures for a 2 turnaround." Ava froze. She opened her mouth, probably to fake a laugh, but I walked past her before she could recover. 2 days later, Ava's name appeared in my inbox. Subject: urgent sister favor. I let the message sit for hours. When I finally opened it, I found a long, winding email filled with sugary praise and fake warmth, ending with the salon struggling, traffic's down. "We want to redesign the whole look. New murals vibe, something powerful, something new. I'd love for you to paint it. Your fee, of course. Let's help each other shine, Ava." I closed the email, laughed once, and clicked the archive. Success didn't fix everything. That's what no one tells you. It doesn't erase the ache. It doesn't retroactively fix the years you gave, the moments they stole, the quiet tears cried into an empty pillow. And just when you think you're rising, you learn people will pull at you harder than they ever did when you were still beneath them. I found that out the hard way. 3 weeks later, my studio was humming. Bookings were full through the summer. I'd even partnered with 2 local nonprofits to design community art walls for shelters and rec centers. Then the email hit. Subject: legal notice allegation of trademark infringement from a law firm representing Ava Pierce Enterprises LLC. Apparently, she had preemptively registered Pierce Prints as a lifestyle salon and beauty goods brand the same week I launched. And now she was alleging brand confusion. She was trying to steal my name. I stared at the screen, heart thudding like a war drum. She hadn't succeeded in creating a name for herself, so she decided to take mine. I met with my lawyer that same day. "Legally," he said, adjusting his glasses, "it's a gray zone. You built this business under the Pierce Prince name. You've sold thousands of pieces. You have a digital trail, dated timestamps, client lists. But she filed the name under a different business category first. But she's the one trying to branch into my field. I argued. Art, murals, home design, exactly, we'll fight it. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. But this will get ugly, Natalie. I nodded. I was ready for ugly. They'd called me the weak link. They forgot what happens when a chain finally snaps. Ava's next move was predictable and pathetic. She launched a limited salon product line called Pierce Prince, essential oils, wall diffusers, some Pinterest-looking wall art. She hosted an influencer event with pastel balloons and fake smiles and posted it everywhere with a caption, "Family means building together." Like I was part of it. Like she hadn't just stabbed me in the back and twisted the blade. But she made one mistake. She thought my silence was a weakness. She didn't realize silence was just my wind-up. The revenge wasn't loud. It was deliberate, precise. I didn't make call-out posts or trash her publicly. I just did what she never expected. I built bigger. I rebranded quietly under my full name, Natalie Empire Studios. And then I launched a new line called Unwritten Contracts. Every piece told the story of betrayal masked in family love. Paintings of daughters holding burning houses, of girls holding their own names stitched back together from pieces. It went viral, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram Reels. People shared their own family betrayal stories in the comments. My store sold out in 11 hours. And then a Forbes local impact article dropped. Headlined, "This LA artist turned family pain into a 6-figure art brand, and her work is just getting started." Her face wasn't mentioned once, but my name was everywhere. The morning Ava's salon went dark on social media. I knew something had cracked. No new posts, no curated boomerangs, no photo shoots in front of ring lights, just silence. Then came the text from an old mutual friend. "Hey, did you see Ava's sponsor pulled out? Apparently she missed Peril too. Yikes." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't feel something, but because I did. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't gloating. It was a strange, quiet ache. A reminder that even revenge had its limits. That watching someone unravel, especially someone who shares your blood, doesn't fill the holes they once carved into you. But it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. That same week, I received a letter handwritten in soft, loopy script I hadn't seen in years from my grandmother. It had been buried deep in a box of art supplies I brought with me when I left my parents' house. I hadn't opened the box in over a year, but there it was, a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside, just a single sheet of paper. "Natalie, my quiet girl with the bright hands. I know they don't see you, but I do. The day I told the lawyer not to call your mother. I told him to call you. Everything I saved gets for you because you stayed. Check the storage unit. 4218 Malbury. The key is taped under the top drawer of my sewing desk." I froze. That sewing desk now sat in the corner of the studio, used to hold sketchbooks and ink bottles. I pulled open the top drawer, reached under, felt the cool metal of a taped key. The storage unit was old, dusty, the kind that felt like time had folded in on itself and decided to take a nap. But inside was proof. Bank documents, certificates, stocks, deeds. She hadn't just left me a few trinkets. She'd left me everything. Her state, her art, a trust fund that hadn't been touched in over a decade, and a signed statement from her attorney clearly indicating she'd bypassed her daughter, my mom, entirely. I stood there in the stillness, holding the papers, heart pounding with 1,000 memories, her voice, her wrinkled hands guiding mine over sketch pads. Her words, "You have a kind of fire that doesn't shout, it just burns longer." They'd lied to me for years, told me she left nothing, that she had forgotten everything before she passed, but they knew they hid it, they stole it. That night I didn't sleep. I gathered everything, scanned the legal docs, contacted the lawyer listed on the will, who confirmed every word. My mother had tried to keep me small even after death, but Grandma had made sure I'd rise anyway. I posted a story on my art page, not calling names, not revealing family drama, just a video of me unlocking the storage unit. Then flashes of the old paintings, the trust paperwork, and a quiet caption. "Sometimes the people who gave you nothing were just hiding what was already yours." It exploded. Comments poured in. People sharing stories of being overlooked, betrayed, left out by their own blood. They didn't know it was about my mom, but she did. and she called me the next morning. "Natalie," she began, her voice tight. "Why are you dragging this into the public eye?" "I didn't name anyone," I said calmly. "But if you feel exposed, maybe that's not about me. You don't understand what we went through," she snapped. "We had plans. We were going to tell you." "No, you weren't," I cut in. "You were going to bury it with her just like you tried to bury me." Silence, then softly. "I didn't think you'd make it, Natalie." My throat tightened. "I know," she hung up. Later that day, Ava posted one last picture to her salon's account. A selfie, face swollen from crying. No filters, no edits. Captioned, "Turns out the sparkle they sold me wasn't real. But my sister, she built her own." It didn't make me feel better, but it made me feel seen. Maybe for the first time. It was supposed to be just a small art pop-up in San Diego. 3 walls, 2 assistants, 1 truck, but somehow it became the event of the month. People lined up outside the converted warehouse before the doors opened. Some had flown, others wore t-shirts with my designs printed from Etsy knockoffs. A few even cried while standing beneath my newest mural, Inheritance of Silence. A woman painting her own name over one that had been crossed out. By the end of this weekend, a talent agency offered to represent me. A home decor brand wanted licensing rights, and a Netflix producer asked if I'd ever thought about turning my story into a documentary. I told him I'd think about it, but deep down I knew something else had shifted. I was no longer someone trying to prove herself. I was the proof. The moment I knew the world had changed was when Dad showed up unannounced at my downtown studio. He didn't even knock, just stood outside the glass front doors like he wasn't sure if he belonged. I walked over hesitant. He looked smaller, paler, less sure of himself. "I saw the Forbes article," he said. I waited. "And your grandmother's will. Your mom told me everything." Still, I said nothing. He sighed. "I thought I was protecting you by toughening you up." My jaw tightened. "You weren't protecting me. You were shrinking me." He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. He just looked at the walls around us, at the murals, the sketches, the inspiration boards. "She'd be proud of you," he said softly. "Your grandmother." That hit harder than I expected. "She already was," I replied. He nodded, then something unexpected. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a box, a wooden one. "I found this after she passed. Your mom never let me give it to you." Inside was a necklace, simple. A gold pendant shaped like a paintbrush. Small enough to be missed, heavy enough to matter. "She bought it for you after you got into Parsons," he said. "Said she'd give it to you on your first gallery show." I stared at the necklace for a long time. I didn't say thank you, but I didn't throw it away either. Days passed, then weeks, and something strange began happening. Ava stopped posting completely. Instead, she started working. She showed up at small community events, volunteered at mural installations, didn't tag herself, didn't beg for photos, just worked quietly. One afternoon, she walked into my studio with paint on her jeans. "You're the reason I even picked up a brush," she said, not looking at me. I was so obsessed with being seen, I forgot what it meant to see. She handed me a file folder. Inside was a letter of withdrawal. She dissolved the business license under Pierce Prince. "Your name was never mine to take," she said, and walked out. For the first time in years, I felt still. No noise, no proving, no chasing, just presence. I poured myself into my biggest project yet, a gallery show titled The Blood That Didn't Bind. The pieces were raw, jagged, honest, art about family and wounds, and reclaiming identity. I invited Ava and my father, but not my mother. That boundary stayed. She sent a bouquet anyway. I didn't send one back. On opening night, a girl approached me. Couldn't have been older than 19. She pointed to a canvas of a woman walking away from a burning table set for Thanksgiving. "I showed this to my mom," she whispered, "and told her I wasn't coming home this year." I blinked. She smiled. That painting gave permission to stop shrinking, too. In that moment, I realized the revenge was never the gallery, the money, the article, or the rebrand. It was freedom. Freedom from being small. From needing their approval. From explaining myself over and over to people who never really listened. And that was worth more than $1.7 million. 6 months passed. 6 months of creation, clarity, and silence. Not the painful kind. Not the one that made you wonder if you were invisible. This silence felt earned. I like peace. My brand was thriving. I have a small team now. Young artists, mostly women, some queer, some from broken families. All of them are brilliant. All of them were overlooked at some point by someone who thought they weren't enough. When I walked through my studio, I saw pieces of myself mirrored in them. Their fire, their hunger, their quiet resilience. And I knew this was the spark my father said I never had. Then one morning a call. It was Ava. The voice was calm. Too calm. Mom had a fall, I didn't speak. She's okay, she added quickly, bruised hip, but she's asking for you. My throat closed a little. I'm not coming to the hospital. I said she's at home now, she's different. Nat. I don't know how to explain it, but she's been going through all of Grandma's journals. I think she sees it now. My voice stayed level. Some things can't be undone with a fall, Ava said softly. But maybe they can be seen. 3 days later, I drove up to the house I once called home. Not to stay, not to be welcomed back, but to reclaim the last thing I hadn't yet, closure. Mom sat in the garden chair where Grandma used to knit, wrapped in a blanket. Her face looked older than I remembered. Less polished, more human. Natalie, she said. I nodded. We sat in silence for a while, no words, no rehearsed apologies. Finally, she held something out. A folder. I read her journals, all of them. She said she loved you so much. I think I was jealous for a long time. I opened the folder. Inside were photos me as a child painting with Grandma, birthday cards, sketches I'd thought were lost, and a letter in Grandma's handwriting labeled for my daughter when she's ready to know why she lost her own. I handed it back. I don't need that answer anymore, I said. She looked stunned. Why? Because I stopped waiting for you to see me. I built a life without your validation. I made peace with the fact that I was never the investment you wanted. Her eyes watered. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't feel, but because I'd already done all my grieving years ago. I stood. Before leaving, I looked around the backyard one last time. The swing set was still there, rusted, crooked, and never repaired, just like our relationship. A month later, I made one final move. I purchased a modest building near Echo Park and turned it into a community studio, Studio Spark, for girls who'd been told they weren't enough for young artists who needed space, supplies, and someone to believe in them. I didn't name it after myself, because this wasn't about me anymore. It was about every daughter who walked away from a table that never saw her worth. Every woman who rebuilt herself from dust and doubt. Every person who turned silence into fire. At the grand opening, my staff surprised me. They unveiled a mural on the back wall. When I didn't paint, it showed a girl, her face half in shadow, half in light. She held a match in one hand and in the other a mirror above it, a single phrase. You were the spark all along. And just like that, I smiled. No more revenge. No more proving, just power and peace.